Hello and welcome to the official podcast of Palate Exposure, featuring Ilona Thompson, a podcast for those seeking the ultimate in wine, food, and travel. Each week she interviews winemakers, chefs, celebrities, and a variety of guests that shape the way we enjoy life.
There's an edge to the valley that's, unique.
Sure.
And I believe, and you tell me if I'm on the right track, I believe that those foundational parts, the Thomas Kellers of the world, Bill Harlan's, they really understood what gracious hospitality were, and they promoted it with everything they do. It permeated everything. And to be exposed to it so quickly, that was your trial by fire.
Sure.
It must have had an enormous impression, and there has to be a continuum almost in that mentality. What is gracious hospitality to you? What is that grace of Napa?
Hospitality. Napa Valley is built on hospitality. It's the core of what we do. Regardless of the industry, whether it's the food and restaurant industry, whether it's the wine industry, or even the supporting the hotel industry, the tourism industry. It all goes back to that foundation of hospitality. And I think, to me, I don't know, I've always enjoyed being around people. I've enjoyed the chance to have conversations and learn about people, share my passion and learn about theirs. And to me, wine is the vessel or the vehicle that sort of is the consistent, or it's what brings it. It helps bring it together. When you have a glass of wine, for us, it's not necessarily about or what are the flavors you taste in it. It's more about what are the experiences that a glass of wine can bring to you. And are you enjoying it with a great meal? Are you having it with friends? Are you walking a vineyard? Are you playing bocce ball? Are you so to me, it comes down to just simply the relationships. And I think my path in Napa Valley, my time here, I've been lucky to have and create an incredible amount of relationships. And I think curating and having proper relationships and trusting the people that you're supporting yourself with, that all sort of is part of what that hospitality is. So our guests are part of those relationships. It's that experience is based on the relationship that you have with people, and the relationship that you have with the glass, the bottle of wine, the food that you're having, are again the experience that you're bringing forth because of it.
It's almost like a projection is what you're describing. There's, of course, many, many discussions about the concept of terroir as it relates to the land. I like to talk about the human terroir quite a bit. So in this case, this is this relational aspect, how you relate to yourself, to your business, to your environment, to your peers, what translates into the bottle, the cerebral parts, the emotional parts. What's that world like to you?
Look at, for example, like Correlation Wine Company. This is a new brand that my wife and I decided to launch outside of our family estate, Vineyard 7 and 8, sort of as an opportunity for us to explore those relationships that we've made over the years outside of our estate, explore opportunity of new varietals, hence the Sauvignon Blanc.
Delicious Sauvignon Blanc.
The importance of the relationships and how they go into creating a bottle of wine, whether it's the relationship of the vintner and the grower, the fruit source, where it comes from, the different, no pun here, but the correlations on the parts of how you make a great bottle of wine. So, it's endless, to all the way to the point of then how do you enjoy a bottle of wine? Who are the people that you're enjoying it with? How the number of hands that had to have touched that bottle along the way, from the growing all the way to the enjoyment part of it, is endless. And the correlation of how you enjoy a bottle of wine, that relationship, also is ever defining. There's, we could sit here all afternoon and talk about the endless number of ways a bottle of wine is enjoyed and the people that you enjoy it with and why you enjoy it with those people, or because of the people that were involved that helped make it happen.
So it's more of an experimental part of the business when you get to play and introduce different things.
Exactly.
Vineyard 7 and 8 is a core.
Vineyard 7 and 8 is about a specific place. Vineyard 7 and 8 is about our family's estate. When my family bought this property in 1999, it was planted to about 8 acres each of Chardonnay and Cabernet, of which that fruit was under contract for the first number of years. And we had the opportunity to work with some vineyards, some of our neighbors here on Spring Mountain. See it? We're in the vineyard. We hear some tractors in the background.
That's right.
But I think that when it came back to where the fruit sources were coming from for Vineyard 7 and 8, it came back to telling a story of a specific place. Mm-hmm. And it's when I said to my father when we were talking about the business plan of the different opportunities that we've had, and I said, Vineyard 7 and 8 to me is about the wines that come from this specific property, from our 40-acre property, from the roughly 20 acres of vines that we've planted on this estate. And it's that Cabernet Sauvignon, it's that Chardonnay that comes from here. And this is the story that's told from those. Correlation Wine Company, as we talked about, is about the relationships that come from outside, and that really come from the journey that my wife and I have had for the 18 years that we've lived in Napa. So, it goes well beyond just this fence line. Is it our next door neighbor, the Atchley family? They've been on the property, they've been on the hill here on Spring Mountain since the late 60s. They planted their vineyard in the mid 90s, and by sort of happen chance we got an opportunity to start working with their fruit in their vineyard in 2007, and it just sort of organically a number of years later became the foundation of the Correlation Wine Company brand, and it started because of a relationship.
Of course, yeah, that makes perfect sense. So I've kind of taken it for granted, I'm afraid, and I know that the fans of your brand already know the story behind the name Vineyard 7 and 8, but the new ones don't. So I'm going to ask you to tell us, what does it mean, Vineyard 7 and 8?
There's a couple stories. I guess the original story is more foundational on my father's background and his professional life. He having been in Wall Street his whole career, and of course, a life that surrounds himself by numbers and mathematics and numerology. He did a fair amount of business in the Far East, namely sort of China and Japan. And if you think of numerology, 8 being a very lucky number in Eastern culture, of course, lucky number 7 here in Western culture, and sort of that yin and yang and how the two numbers interplay with each other, both with similar meanings of good luck and prosperity. And as all my fellow vintners would attest to, it takes a lot of good luck to bring some prosperity in this business. So maybe we felt putting it on a label would help us in that endeavor. Then there's also a family aspect to this as well. And I say to my brother and sister, I love you guys, but I don't think this is not to exclude them, but of course, I'm proud to say that my father's birthday is July 7th and my birthday is July 8th. So
all right.
There's the 7 and the 8.
Nice.
But I think, even being such that this is a project that, he and I have been working on together over the years, it makes sense that there's that tie back to the two of us and sort of multi-generational business venture at the same time.
Wow.
I wouldn't wouldn't call myself second generation in this business because we've been doing it together.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And certainly pays homage to the importance of that collaboration. And
sure.
Would you call your dad your biggest mentor?
Certainly one of them, absolutely. He, in many ways, in how he has sort of run his life and his family, and the hard. I didn't see him a tremendous amount at some certain years growing up because he was working so much, but I knew I never faulted him for that. I never felt that he wasn't around. I knew that he was around even when he couldn't be. My mom was the rock of Gibraltar of our family, and equally as much of a mentor in creating me who I am. And she's a very, very good people person. So there's no question that I learned a tremendous amount from her, and the passion of a great conversation, and the understanding that people are, the people, what they bring to the table and where they come from and what they have to offer is an amazing thing. And this life allows us that chance to have those conversations, go from there. And so I've had a lot of mentors. My wife, I mean, I married my high school sweetheart, and she certainly had a tremendous hand in crafting me into the man I am today.
Well, your life sounds really charmed, so we need to bring things to balance now. My next question is going to be, what in the world didn't work for you? What were some of your most challenging, god-awful moments, if there's even such a thing, but something when you really were ready to throw in the towel, or something that really got to you?
God, it's hard. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've been, and you probably won't believe this, but growing up I was very shy. It was hard for me, creating friendships growing up in sort of grade school was a challenge for me. I was not the best learner in the classroom. It was not an easy place for me to be. My brain is just simply has not been wired for sort of a traditional learning. And maybe I think that's why culinary school really was a great medium for me. I mean, it was because the way you learn at culinary school is with your hands. It's the same thing with winemaking. It's with your hands. And so I've always been a hands-on learner, a visual learner. And so I don't know, would I say that those have been life-changing struggles in the beginning? No. I mean, those are trials and tribulations of a young child learning what path is best for him. Coming out here, I don't know. I think when I got into this business, the 4 years of experience I had at Harlan Estate was exceptional, but was mostly balanced on the winemaking and production side of things. So even when I came up the hill to take the reins and help create what this business is for my family, I was still seriously green in sort of the sales and marketing and business aspect of what this is. And there was a lot of struggles in the beginning and mistakes made and did I ever I'm sure at times you get, in anything in life you have frustrations. You think, gosh, why am I doing this? Is this ever going to work? And I think that I don't think I ever really was fully ready on the edge to throw in a towel with this, but I think that there's been frustrations of just sort of questioning, and I think thankfully I've never given up on not pushing forward and hoping and trusting that the learning that I was doing literally on the job, and also the support that my family was giving me to fail and learn from those failures has been incredible. I sometimes wonder why my family's been so patient at times in the early years of this business, but thankfully they have been, because it's enabled us to get to where we are today. It's enabled me to get to where I am, as a businessman, as a vintner and winemaker, and as a person. So.
Well, thankfully this is not a video, this is audio recording, because I was wiping the shocked look off my face when you first started talking. You did say it would surprise me, and the reason for that is because we've been running into each other for years.
Sure.
And you're such a social butterfly at those things. I mean, you guys should see Wes, and he's always in top form, always smiling, always happy, telling stories, pouring wine, and just being so present and so, actively engaged. If I were to describe you, the last word I would use, shy and introverted. And that couldn't be further from the truth early on, huh?
Exactly.
This is a public eye kind of exercise. So did you train yourself to be that?
No, I mean, I studied economics in college. So, other than maybe some presentations in front of a small class, I was a small liberal arts college in upstate New York, so it wasn't one of these classes that I had, a forum of, a couple hundred people in my class. You had small classes. So, even if you were shy and talking in front of your peers and fellow students and teachers, it wasn't a big group, so it wasn't that big of a deal. I don't know. I think again, maybe my personal touch with, or sort of the education in public speaking, if you will, probably comes back just my time with my family and my parents. They were, whether it's through my father's business and the parts of his business that needed to be social and entertaining, entertaining clients and fellow colleagues. We were often at parties and dinner parties and things like that, and I was always, we were always brought in tow, my brother, sister, and I, and there was an expectation of a certain manner that we had to have for these times, and so it was. I wouldn't say it was forced, but we sort of were immersed into it.
Yeah.
So I think I developed a comfortness of being around people, and no question, being in this industry is sort of throw yourself to the fire of talking to people. I mean, I don't think, if you'd gone back to my first family winemakers tasting in San Francisco back in 2005, I might have been a little bit more shy and sort of stumbling over my words than maybe I do now, but that's also been, that was 14 years ago.
Yeah.
So, with anything, experience helps.
Yeah. So, again, you started at the Mount Olympus of culinary arts and vintners, the gods. And having such a powerful example as your dad, who clearly he has to be a brilliant businessman, there's no doubt whatsoever. For those of you that know and love your brand, you're in a rarefied, almost cult-like status. This is really elevated brand.
It's because we're 2,000 feet up on a mountain. No.
That's right. Good one. For those of you that are not familiar with Vineyard 7 and 8, I just want them to understand just how high are the stakes to be in that category. Because it's no small feat that you started out so young and with relatively little experience, and you built something that's a blue chip brand.
I don't know. I mean, I think there comes back to that never being satisfied thing that I said earlier, and I'm extremely happy and proud of what I've created and what my team and family has helped us create through this journey. Do I believe I'm where I want to be? Not even close. I think that that there's no question we play, and we made the choice to play at that ultra premium level, and it is a very hard level to play at. It's not the easiest level from a business standpoint. It's certainly not the most lucrative.
Not from the fiscal either, absolutely.
And so that part of it brings plenty of struggles, especially when Mother Nature gets involved. And you have years that you produce more, you have years that you produce less, and those years you produce less, actually, perfect time to pour the 2015 Estate Cabernet from Vineyard 7 and 8. So one of my favorite vintages, but also one of our smallest. So I'd say on an average basis, we're typically producing about 700-800 cases of Cabernet from the estate. And in 2015, Mother Nature, she was very kind on quality, but she was certainly shy on quantity. And that's just the nature of being a farmer. So we produced just over 500 cases. So
wow, that's a big decline.
You take a third of your production out in a business that already has microscopic margins. It's hard. So you keep your head down and you try to get through those small years. You get through the years of struggle. And also here is a product that it's a luxury good.
Yep.
Luxury goods go through cycles. Clearly, as the economy go through cycles, high-end wine is an easy one to sort of pass on.
Yeah.
And again, as I said earlier, especially as the number the quality and the number of qualified wineries and brands that are out there this day available to customers makes it even easier. So it's a constant struggle, and I wouldn't. It's a good struggle. It's an honest struggle. It keeps you honest again on what makes you, what makes your story unique. And it's not that, the uniqueness of our story isn't that we're making Cabernet Sauvignon from the top of a mountain. I mean, look, we're sitting in a neighborhood with, you could just count our neighbors. I mean, there's nearly a dozen exceptional wineries within a half a mile of where we're sitting right now.
Yeah.
That are all small family producing mountain wineries. So, it's where you have to really stay focused on, okay, we're making wines that are specific to this specific property. What does our property better than our neighbor's property? No, certainly not necessarily, but this is our version of it. This is our version of this place. The people and the relationships that we've made along the way, their relationship with us, our relationship with them, all become something that we have to stay focused on.
I love what you just said, because you clearly implying symbiosis between the land and the human, and that actually includes the end user. And
Sure.
That's the piece that gets lost in conversations. When you develop relationships with people that consume your wine, it aligns with them for whatever reason. Those are arguably not as important as the fact that it does.
Sure.
It's like when you become friends, fall in love with someone, do you want to dissect it to a molecular level and try to figure out why?
This is. I mean, I've always said, I've got a great team on sort of the sales and hospitality side. I mean, I've got a great team overall, but on this case, two gals that run our hospitality program, and both of which, when I hired them, were very green to the wine industry. And one of their concerns that they both shared were, I don't know if I have the wine knowledge to tell our guests, this is what you should be tasting, this, that, and the other thing, and this is, aromatically, and this is what you should see and smell and taste. And I said, that's okay. I don't care. I don't want that, because I don't want to sit here and profess to you what you should be tasting, because your palate's different than mine. I want to tell a story. I want to welcome people in and have a conversation. And it's that conversation and that story that we share with each other that creates that relationship. And that relationship, then when that guest goes home and they pull that bottle from their cellar, it resonates with them to, that experience that I had up on the top of Spring Mountain at Vineyard 7 and 8. Let me tell you, my friend next door in Georgia, what was so cool about this experience. And so they get to then tell their version of the story that was heard up here. That's not to say that you can't go to your favorite winemonger down the street and get an exceptional bottle of wine. But when you have that story and that experience that is tied to that bottle, it makes it that much more.
Absolutely. And again, for those of you that tasted the wines, clearly, you know what we're talking about. This is quality, integrity, value. For those of you that haven't, hopefully you will. But what I'm hearing now is this liquid philosophy, if you will, that's really important. What you can already tell from this conversation is that your time, your effort, your money will be honored. You're very consumer-centric from everything you've stated, if we were to distill it. And to me, that's a huge value. Again, there's many choices, but
it's knowing where, if anything, knowing where your product comes from. I think that even goes back to when I started at the French Laundry. I'll tell a funny story here that sort of goes to one of the challenging experiences I had. But I was in the kitchen. I was a lowly prep chef at the time, and I was peeling asparagus. And it wasn't just grabbing the peeler and ripping the ends off of it. It's first you make the score with the paring knife around the edge of the top edge of the asparagus, and then you're perfectly peeling it off. They all have to be the exact same size, roughly almost the size of the pencil, for both length and thickness of the asparagus, and everything has been done for a perfect reason. And I apparently. Chef Keller came over and he stopped and he noticed that I was not maybe doing it exactly how he was hoping I was going to, and put his arm around me. And one of the things I always sort of appreciated and loved, it was sort of a love-hate thing of him, was he never yelled at you. It wasn't one of these chefs that he didn't throw pans around the kitchen or scream or yell and put you down. He had other ways of sort of letting you know that maybe that whatever you did there, that choice you made was maybe not necessarily the correct choice. So it was done sort of a little more subtle, which maybe was even more painful. And he put his arm around me and he said, "So Wes, I just want to tell you the story that here we are. We're lucky to have this asparagus from, let's just say the Smith family, and the Smith family has this asparagus farm in this specific location, and this farm has been in their family for generations, and they their livelihood, they wake up in the morning and they get to touch the soil of their property, and they get to go out and they get to watch their efforts and their blood, sweat, and tears, and the end result is this beautiful asparagus that we've then had the opportunity, or so lucky to have, to bring into the restaurant here, and then our job as chefs is to then how do we tell their story through a great dish. And unfortunately, because of how you have prepared it, we're unable to serve it to our guests tonight, and therefore we've done a disservice to the Smith family and their asparagus, and it's sad that we don't get to help them see their asparagus journey all the way through to end. And I was like, oh my God, wow, okay, I don't think I ever peeled asparagus wrong again.
I'm never going to look at asparagus at a grocery store the same. Thank you for this, I think. Wow.
But it goes back to, sort of why did I tell that story? It goes to knowing where your product comes from. So in that case, knowing where that asparagus came from and treating it with utmost care through the entire journey all the way to the point of enjoyment, is like understanding where your bottle of wine comes from. And again, with the today's day and age, you can get wine from a multiple ways, whether it's on the internet, it's at a wine shop down the street, it's at the restaurant, or it's directly from the winery. And I think from the small producer standpoint, we always, we struggle to compete with some of these, online retailers and places that are offering discounts because they've got volume. But one of the things we always profess back to our guests and our clients is, what we can assure you is that the bottle that you purchase directly from us comes from here. It's been stored correctly. It comes from that conversation you get to have. You get to pull that bottle from your cellar, call me up, hey Wes, we bought the 2015 from you. We're getting ready to have a dinner party. What do you think? Is it ready? Hey, chances are I've probably tasted it recently. If I haven't, cool. It gives me an opportunity to go grab a bottle from the cellar and open it up and say, hey, yeah, absolutely, it's showing really well right now. Or hey, you know what? Actually, it might be in a phase right now that it would benefit from a little more time in your cellar. So if you've got another vintage, I might jump onto that one first. So it goes back to that relationship that you create. So how do you sort of educate your consumers that really going directly to the source is the best way?
Well, you described unprecedented access and definitely value added. If I could talk to the original source, why would I go anywhere else? That's a huge incentive right there.
I hope so.
And you're kind of fun. Honestly, you and I have never had a conversation where we wouldn't wind up smiling, so I'm pretty sure that this type of interactions with your consumer wind up with not just kind of relational, intimate thing, but just good old fun.
Sure.
Wine's supposed to be pleasure.
It is supposed to be fun. At the end of the day, it's wine.
Yes. Yes.
And I totally appreciate the serious nature that wine is, and that many treat it seriously, as do we. But at the end of the day, if it's not simply about the true basic enjoyment of a bottle of wine with somebody that you love, I don't see the purpose of it.
The conclusion of this interview can be found in the next podcast, already available for your download. Thanks again for tuning in to the official podcast of Palate Exposure, featuring Ilona Thompson.